The Daily Show. I'm Ron Chang. We got so much to talk about tonight. Pete Hegseth has his own Battle of the Bulge. The National Guard adds more tour dates. And I bet you $50 gambling is going to destroy American society. So let's get into the headlines. Let's start with America's military, the Karen of the world. They just will not stay out of other countries' business. And leading this military is Pete Hegseth, who you might think is the Secretary of Defense. But you'd be wrong. He's rebranded himself the Secretary of War. You know how cool guys always give themselves nicknames. And as part of this military makeover, last week the secretary announced a surprise meeting.
Tonight, in an unprecedented move, Secretary Pete Hegseth asking all U.S. general officers and admirals around the world to gather at the U.S. Marine Base in Quantico, Virginia.
A meeting of this size in person and on such short notice is extremely rare.
It's going to also potentially be a security risk, given the sheer number of military officials and how many are going to be gathered in one place at a time.
Listen, we all do weird things when we're drunk, okay? Some of us slide into an ex's DMs, and some of us call every U.S. general to a meeting at Quantico. But, you know, I'm sure if the secretary is going to gather all the generals, some of them from active war zones, then he must have something very important he wants to tell them.
It's tiring to look out at combat formations, or really any formation, and see fat troops. Likewise, it's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon.
That's what you dragged all these generals in for? To tell them they're fat? Couldn't you just leave some passive-aggressive comments on their Instagram? Like, hey, congrats, General, when are you due? I mean, this guy will text top-secret war plans, but when it comes to body shaming, he's like, I want to see their fat faces when I tell them how fat their faces are. Look, I get the military needs to be fit, okay? But in defense of fat generals, they're kind of like coaches, right? Like, coaches don't need to be fit enough to play the sport. They just have to be fit enough to date a 24-year-old. And also, there are some military positions you kind of don't want a fit soldier for. Like, I don't want a guy with six-pack abs operating a drone. He clearly hasn't had enough time and experience sitting down like this with a controller. Just going, okay, he's dead. But telling generals they have to get on Ozempic wasn't the whole speech. America's Secretary of War had more to say than that.
No more beards, long hair, superficial individual expression. We're going to cut our hair, shave our beards, and adhere to standards.
Okay, you hear that, you goddamn hippie generals? No more beards. I'm looking at you, Admiral Lebowski. Now, according to Pete Hegseth, America's military standards are now going to be indistinguishable from a Grindr profile, okay? No fatties, no facial hair, and get those ladies the out of my sight. But it's all about a much larger project of de-wokificationing.
An entire generation of generals and admirals were told that they must parrot the insane fallacy that, quote, our diversity is our strength. They had to put out dizzying DEI and LGBTQI plus statements. No more identity months, DEI offices, dudes in dresses.
Yeah, you hear that, General Doubtfire? Something very weird about that general. I can't put my finger on it. Although, are we sure dudes wearing dresses doesn't work? Because the Taliban wore dresses, and it kind of worked for them. You know what I mean? I don't know, maybe the beards cancel out the dresses. Someone check the math on that. But this wasn't just a pep talk. Pete Hegseth, the motherfucking Secretary of War, also took the opportunity to bump his book sales on Amazon.
You might say we're ending the war on warriors. I heard someone wrote a book about that.
Yeah. And that someone was him. Say what you want about Henry Kissinger. I mean, at least he never used his position to sell his book, 101 War Crimes to Try on Cambodians. But bottom line, a lot of people were worried that this event was going to show that Pete Hegseth had taken over the military. But it actually just showed how disconnected his MAGA rally energy is from their professional culture, especially this moment that he clearly thought was going to crush.
Should our enemies choose foolishly to challenge us, they will be crushed by the violence, precision, and ferocity of the War Department. In other words, to our enemies, F-A-F-O. If necessary, our troops can translate that for you.
Wow. Not even the leaders of the U.S. military have ever seen a line bomb that hard before. It's just kind of, it's weird and some would say juvenile to use internet slang in a speech to your adversaries. I mean, President Reagan was never like, Mr. Gorbachev, I hark to us, spit on that wall. But basically, that was Pete Hegseth's speech. F-A-F-O. And no one in the military is allowed to be fat, especially the leaders. Okay? It's a bad look. So next up to speak was the famously thin health nut commander-in-chief, Donald Trump. And even President Trump noticed how dead the room was.
Fantastic job. I've never walked into a room so silent before.
Wow, way to throw your opening act under the bus. Who was that lead? Who was that loser, huh? I thought alcoholics were supposed to be fun. Well, if anyone can win a room back, it's President Trump, who convinced these generals there was a good reason to pull them from their posts.
I call it the N-word.
Oh, shit. He's coming in hot here. Is he gonna say the thing? Is this about to happen? Is this it?
The word nuclear, we can't let people throw around that word.
Oh, okay, the N-word is nuclear. Okay, but that's a weird way to say it, since there's also kind of another word that we famously refer to as the N-word.
There are two N-words, and you can't use either of them. Can't use either of them. And frankly, if it does get to use, we have more than anybody else. We have better, we have newer.
Wait, are we still talking about nuclear or the other one? I just want to make sure. Look, I'm sure the gathering of America's most decorated generals is loving this extended riff on the N-word, but let's maybe wrap this up before it gets out of hand.
San Francisco, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, they're very unsafe places, and we're going to straighten them out one by one. And this is going to be a major part for some of the people in this room. That's a war, too. It's a war from within. I told Pete we should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for our military, National Guard, but military. And this is going to be a big thing for the people in this room because it's the enemy from within, and we have to handle it before it gets out of control.
Okay. You know what? Can we just go back to talking about the N-word, okay? Because this seems worse. So is that what this whole thing was about? Giving these generals the marching orders for war against American cities? That's some pretty dark and scary shit from the president and the secretary of war. I mean, no, start with the... No. Not now. No shredding. Shredding for good stuff only, not bad stuff. Look, I've only officially been American for like a few hours now, but even I know that using American cities as a training ground for the military is kind of messed up, and I don't think that's what American soldiers signed up to do. So if you're going to rope them into your authoritarian fantasies, at the very least, you should at least change the recruitment ads.